My sister came back after 6 years and began a relationship with my husband's cousin. However, she got drunk and confessed her love for him. 6 years ago, I stopped talking to my sister Mindy because she kept flirting with my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, Richard, even though he was clearly uncomfortable. What made the situation more difficult? My parents were not caring. They acted as if it was completely normal for my sister to get close to the man I was seeing, thinking it was just a temporary thing for her. Mindy is my little sister, sibling. I believe Mindy didn't dislike me as much in the beginning. I loved her so much that being away from her felt impossible. I showed her how to ride a bike, and we always played together. As we grew up, our personalities became more distinct. I did good in school, but Mindy had a hard time. She wasn't dumb, but school was challenging for her. Because our parents focused a lot on our grades, it created problems within our family. Because Mindy did not do well, our parents always made comparisons. They would encourage her to do better and improve, as if I were the measure for her performance. I understood why she was upset, and I don't blame her. It must have been difficult for her to hear that she wasn't as good as her older sister. Even though I tried to speak to her and assist her with her homework, she began to distance herself from me after receiving a lot of criticism. When we were teenagers, we had to choose what to do once classes were over. Now, I am an introverted person, so I spend my evenings studying or reading in my room. As always, I found comfort in being alone. However, Mindy was always more outgoing. Hanging out with friends made her really happy. She enjoyed going to parties and prom. Our parents would use my desire to stay at home as a way to convince her to stay home as well. They asked, "Your sister learns at home. Why can't you if she? If they don't go to parties, why should you?" I knew it wasn't right for her. I didn't have a problem with her wanting to have fun, but our parents made me seem like the standard. This made her very angry. She thought I wasn't fun to be around because I didn't have the same social life as her. I could tell she didn't like our parents' rules, but it hurt when she shouted at me. I tried to explain to her that I wasn't responsible for her not staying at home, but she understood she couldn't blame our parents, so she shouted at me. I started to get more and more annoyed with Mindy. Minor arguments started happening more often and turned into intense conflicts. Mindy criticized my looks. She would make fun of my hair, weight, and anything else she could. She enjoyed criticizing our appearance the most. She laughed and told me I resembled our father, which she thought made me less attractive than her. "You have your father's nose and shoulders. That's why you appear strong for a woman," she would say. It hurt because I had never thought about my body in that way before. No matter how many times I asked her to quit, she would pick something different. I casually mentioned to my mom, with Mindy present, that my old jeans were too small. Not anymore. It was just a note about how my body has changed over time. My sympathetic mom told me that it was natural for women's bodies to change and that I shouldn't worry. Mindy saw it as a chance to criticize me. She smiled and joked, "You look like a pig, perhaps this is a clue to be more active and exercise." That comment was painful. It felt like a strong blow to the stomach. My mom quickly scolded her for being unkind, but Mindy's comments stayed in my mind. I wasn't too heavy or sick, but it hurt me in a strange way to hear that from my younger sister. It was enough for me. I began exercising for me, not to impress anyone else. I wanted to become stronger and healthier. Perhaps I can clear my mind by exercising. I began to run every morning and do simple weightlifting exercises at home. I discovered that I enjoyed it more as I became more engaged. My motivation to exercise no longer stemmed from Mindy's advice. I enjoyed building strength and stamina. I was excited about it. I could express my negative feelings in a constructive way. After deciding that, I met my current husband while out for a morning run. Richard and I connected through our love for working out right away, and our informal talks during our runs became deeper. I liked running with him every day and felt more secure. Encounter. Being with him was one of the best things that happened to me, and it all started when I began to prioritize self-care. When Richard and I began our relationship and it became more important, my parents were glad to see me happy and approved of him. They could see he was kind, and I was starting to like him. Even though I had only been with one person before Richard, being with him felt easy and comfortable. Mindy always managed to mess things up. Instead of being happy for me when I came home excited from hanging out with Richard, she would say things like, "Don't get too excited. He might just be using you, or you don't have as much dating experience as me." so don't get ahead of yourself. You are too serious and needy." It was like Mom couldn't take seeing me happy, especially with Richard. She encouraged me to question my relationship and believe that I may not be worthy of him. But Richard was not at all as she described. He loved me right from the beginning. He always kept his word, respected me, and promised a future together. I always trusted his intentions and felt secure and loved when I was with him, so I didn't listen to what Mindy told me. Richard met my family at my parents' place after months of courting. I was anxious but happy about this important move. My parents were friendly and kind. They anticipated his arrival and immediately took a liking to him. The fact that he showed he cared about me was enough to gain their approval. Everything was great that evening, except for Mindy. She was being playful with Richard, which surprised me because she usually made mean comments about me when he was around. She was praising how he looked or laughing a lot at his jokes. She even gently touched his arm while they talked, which made Richard feel uncomfortable. He also pushed his chair further from her. My parents didn't seem to notice what Mindy was doing when I glanced at them. I always knew Mindy acted in a specific manner around boys. She batted her eyelids, spoke in a girly way, and overall pretended to gain their attention. I wasn't surprised when she had been with other guys before, but this time was unique. I didn't expect her to go that far with Richard, who was my boyfriend. After Richard went away, I talked to my parents about feeling uncomfortable with her actions that night. I said Mindy had been acting strange around Richard all night, but they didn't pay attention. "Oh, come on. It's lovely that your little sister has a modest, harmless crush on Richard," my mom chided me, almost giggling. That probably means she also trusts him. Their response, especially my mother's, caught me off guard. She didn't seem worried by what Mindy did. I was the only thing that mattered to her. It was a lot more. It crossed a line and made me feel uneasy to see my little sister openly flirting with my partner. I talked to Mindy because my parents didn't want to. When I asked her why she was touching my boyfriend's arms, she acted like she didn't know anything. She said she didn't mean anything by it and just found Richard attractive. "He looked too good for me," she said. I shook my head and told her her antics were unsettling and Richard had noticed how weird she was around him. I told her to stop acting creepy around him. Listening. Her face turned red, showing that my words had upset her. She was very angry and went into her room quickly, closing the door loudly without saying sorry or giving any explanation. I knew I embarrassed her, but I didn't regret addressing her. I wouldn't allow her hurt Richard or make me insecure. I stopped inviting Richard over after that incident and started being careful around my sister. He also confessed to feeling uneasy around Mindy. He and I got into colleges that were about an hour away from each other when it was time to leave university. It was sad to be far apart, but he promised me we would make it work, and I trusted him. Before I departed for college, Mindy told me to stop expecting Richard and that men love to cheat in college. Richard and I made it through her negative comments and being far apart. Even though we were far away from each other, we talked every day, made plans to visit, and remained connected. Richard told me that Mindy had sent him a friend request on Facebook while we were talking on the phone. He agreed right away because she is my sister. It wasn't completely surprising. However, Mindy sent a message right away. "Sure, could you please provide me with the text you would like me to simplify?" Richard told me right away because it seemed strange. Since I went to college, Mindy hasn't reached out to me. She never phoned or contacted me. Mindy would shout at my mom if she attempted to speak to me. She suddenly texted my boyfriend? It didn't make sense. Richard visited me at college a few days after our talk and showed me all her messages. Scrolling through them, I saw that he never responded, while she texted him daily. Even if she didn't get a reply, she would still send messages saying "Good morning, handsome," or "Good night" with a heart emoji, showing that she was thinking about you. Also, she began to make comments about. People comment on his posts saying he is attractive or using a rose emoji. Richard and I both agreed that we needed to take action because the situation was overwhelming. I called Mindy with Richard next to me to talk to her. I asked her directly why she was sending messages to Richard without telling me. At first, she ignored it and said she wanted to make sure he was okay. That explanation didn't make sense to me. I told her she shouldn't message my boyfriend in that way and should have asked me about him instead. She had no reason to behave like that without telling me. I called her a creep because she kept sending him many messages even though he was not responding. I informed her, Richard would remove her as a friend on social media, and if she bothered him again, I would send all the messages and comments to our family. I wanted her to understand that what she was doing was wrong. If she wanted to continue talking to her older sister's boyfriend, she needed to talk to the family about it. Then she explained herself, giving reasons why it wasn't a big deal. She believed that Richard didn't have a problem receiving her messages and suggested that he might be lying about feeling uncomfortable. I reminded her about the last time she was warned. I told her to leave right away if she cared about me to prevent any issues, making things worse. Richard was there for me the whole time. After our conversation, he quickly removed her as a friend and seemed happy to be done with her because he also thought the situation was odd. It was important to stop her harmful behavior from affecting our relationship. After what happened with Richard, my relationship with Mindy, which was already weak, got even worse. Even though she never spoke to Richard again after their argument, she was obviously angry with me. She ignored me whenever I came home during college breaks. It was as if she didn't know I existed, and our sisterly relationship ended. Even though they noticed the difference, the parents did not get involved. Even though I knew a lot, my mom would say that it's normal for sisters to argue and that Mindy will eventually move on from her innocent crush on Richard. She felt sure this was a phase and Mindy and I will reconcile. We never did it. I finished college and got my degree. After dating from afar for many years, Richard and I decided to live together. Life seemed to be falling into place. Even though in various jobs, we helped each other through difficult times. One day, Richard proposed and shocked me. It was one of my most emotional times. It was difficult to believe that we were moving forward after everything we had been through. Our parents were very happy, and we were excited to start planning the wedding. My mom wanted us to make up, so she asked me to invite Mindy to the wedding. Even though I had doubts, she managed to persuade me to invite her to be a bridesmaid. Mindy said no when I asked her to be a bridesmaid, but she didn't give a reason. Also, she said no to my invitation to the wedding. Our parents tried to help, but Mindy was determined. I was happy she didn't go to the wedding because it avoided any drama. So I released it. I hadn't seen Mindy in 6 years. Life continued and I hardly ever thought about her. That was until 7 months ago, when my husband Richard casually stated one evening that he had just discovered that his cousin Harry had put a photo on social media with his new girlfriend. Surprisingly, the girl was my sister Mindy. He showed me the image, and I was shocked. I was surprised that Mindy would go out with someone related to Richard. They met and started dating. Without my knowing, they were in the same circles. I quickly thought about whether Mindy did it intentionally. After all that had happened between us, especially her strange interest in Richard, I felt like there was something more to this situation. To understand better, I reached out to Harry myself. We always got along well, so I felt at ease asking him what was going on. Harry told me that he had met Mindy at a gym a few months ago and they got along well. He seemed to really like her. I tried to keep the conversation casual, but I had to inquire, did he know about Mindy? By Hermana? He admitted it after going out a few times, but Mindy had asked him not to talk about her to me, so he never got in touch with me or Richard. That raised major concerns for me. Why does she want to keep her friendship with Harry a secret from me? I felt the need to tell Harry about my distant relationship with Mindy. I explained how she had been unfriendly for years and had crossed limits with Richard, which is why I stopped all contact with her. I told him about how she was really obsessed with Richard and how it made us both feel uneasy. Harry should understand why this situation was so unusual for me, so I explained it to him without holding back. I am working to make Spanish texts easier to understand. I wanted him to think about my concerns and listen without judgment. Harry responded in a defensive manner. He seemed very angry when I mentioned it. He said Mindy was always nice to him and that I might have exaggerated past situations. He didn't trust me, which made me feel upset and sad. After my spouse found out about my conversation with Harry, they were also very angry. He strongly told me not to get involved in their relationship because it was not our business. I mentioned that I wanted to keep Harry safe and tell him about Mindy's past and problems. I truly hoped he would stay safe and be okay. Richard insisted that I hug their real love because Harry looked happy with her. He also recommended that we trust Mindy and consider that she might have changed over the years. I stopped worrying about Mindy because of Richard. After sharing their relationship on social media, Harry and Mindy have been dating more publicly. Our parents were worried at first, But now they trust Harry's story that he randomly ran into Mindy at the gym. Richard and I have been keeping our distance from them, and we hardly go to family events. Harry didn't want us to miss his party at his new house this weekend. It seems like he started living with Mindy. Richard and I were unsure about coming at first. We went reluctantly because we didn't want to separate the family. Things broke apart immediately when we arrived at the party. Harry was very happy because he believed that he and Mindy were meant to be together. He was very happy, but Mindy appeared not to care. I saw her glancing at Richard once or twice, but she never came over to talk. I saw Mindy drinking more than the other people as the night went on. Mindy had the opportunity to be by herself with Richard when he went to the bathroom. She went after him and attempted to have a conversation. Richard believed she wanted to have a private conversation, but he was mistaken. She was told she could speak freely in my presence. Mindy, drunk, started telling Richard how she felt in the hallway, speaking unclearly. She told him that she had always loved him and had tried her best to be close to him. She said he chose me because she thought she was more beautiful. She started to speak louder and angrier. Other guests could hear her loud complaint. Harry looked at her before I could stand up. Regrettably, he clearly heard Mindy confess to Richard. When he understood what was true, his face showed surprise and sadness. I saw people whispering, unsure how to respond to the drama unfolding before them. Some of them. The mood was stressful. As always, Richard managed everything smoothly. Mindy shouldn't have said those things to him, and he told her that her feelings were not real. He always cared about me, so it wasn't important. That made her even angrier, and she cried without feeling embarrassed. Harry wanted to take Mindy somewhere private to prevent any embarrassment. Richard and I chose to go home from the party. The stress was too much, and there was no reason to stay. We found out that Harry and Mindy had a big fight in front of everyone after we left. Mindy, who was drunk and very angry, created pandemonium, attacked Harry with plates and glasses while he dodged her, and demanded to know why she loved Richard. Everyone present must have been horrified. Harry's parents contacted me shortly after. They were very angry and wanted to have a conversation. I said the same things to Harry again. Mindy had a strange crush on my husband, even though Richard had never shown any interest in her. He probably became friends with Harry for that reason. I asked them to speak with Harry and persuade him. Harry's parents phoned again. After consulting with his parents, Harry tried to split up with Mindy, but she didn't like it. As retribution, Mindy trashed his flat, flung stuff about, scratched Harry's car, and threw glitter everywhere. She packed everything and went, leaving Harry with a mess since only his name was on the lease. Harry's parents were very angry and demanded that I call my sister right away because she wasn't picking up the phone. I had to make Mindy pay all the damages too. I tried again but wasn't sure if she would respond. Her parents said they would take legal action against us if we didn't ensure that she paid the bills. I was surprised by how they reacted. I tried to let them know that I had told them and Harry about Mindy's actions and couldn't influence her. Harry's mother mentioned that I should have given them a clearer warning. As her sister, I should also take responsibility for the damage. Did Ida fail to warn Harry and his parents properly? Could I have done better? Update 1. I'm surprised that my post became very popular. When Richard arrived home from work, he promised to speak with his family and solve the problem. He reassured me that I wasn't legally responsible for what my sister did. Richard also said sorry for not believing me when I told him about my sister marrying his cousin. Many people have wondered, but my husband has never cheated on me with my sister. He has never been by himself with her. If something had happened between them, my sister would have already told everyone. I'm not sure if Mindy loves my husband. She might like my husband because she has always felt insecure and competitive with her siblings. I think she is acting inappropriately towards him to compete with me and ruin my fun. My sister has turned into my biggest enemy, which is weird. Update 2. My parents will cover all expenses related to Mindy's damages. My sister went to them crying after her breakup and has been staying with them for several days. My parents said sorry to Harry and his parents right away after I told them Mindy had broken something at Harry's house. They are not happy with Mindy and will pay for repairs. Mindy is fortunate that Harry will not ask her for money. Harry's parents called to apologize for their rudeness. They mentioned they were not thinking clearly and did not mean to do it. I kindly forgave them because I knew how they felt after what my sister did. Update 3. A month has passed since my last update. For everyone wondering what happened to Mindy and if she was punished, my dad firmly believes she has one. In a month, she will find her own place and move out from their home. My sister has never had a job and has always lived with either our parents or her ex-boyfriends for money. This situation will be intriguing. My mother no longer excuses Mindy's actions and seems done with her. After paying Harry hundreds of dollars for her damages, my parents are dissatisfied. In any case, Richard and I are fine. My sister being away from Richard's family is a big relief.